In 2005, Block Party released Silent Alarm. With its energetic vocals, its lyrical sophistication, its embodiment of the worries and feelings of young adults at the time, and the fierce, unorthodox, unforgettable drumming style of Matt Tong, it was widely acclaimed and is personally one of my favorite albums of all time. In 2007, Block Party released A Weekend in the City. With its electronic focus and deviation from conventional instrumentation, it was unlike the band's previous album in pretty much every way, and it drew ire just as much as it drew critical praise. Since then, every single album of theirs has been a significant departure from the last in terms of production, and they are so different that they feel impossible to compare, and yet, people will always feel the need to do so. That's just how we are as human beings. Comparisons provide us with a frame of reference when deciding whether or not to spend our time and money on a piece of media. At what point are comparisons harmful when a work is decidedly distinct? And to that end, when are they actually helpful? Well, if they come from a place of wanting that distinct work to be the best that it can be, rather than distaste for what it is on its own merits, then I'd say they can be helpful in the end. And that's exactly how I feel about Mario Kart World. Now, the last series I thought I'd be framing this argument around is Mario Kart. But Mario Kart World is a very strange game, and certainly different from everything that came before it. It's probably the most controversial game in the series in a long while, but you wouldn't know that from looking at its Metascore. At a glance, it seems like yet another triumph for the series, in a long-standing reign as champion of the genre. But if you've browsed any sort of forum for discussion since the game's release, you've probably come across people sharing their perspectives on the game. If you've played in public lobbies enough, you've probably noticed that a lot of people have started picking random to avoid playing on tracks with intermissions. There's a lot to unpack here, but its perceived flaws are exactly why I think this game is so much fun to talk about. In a surprise continuation of the Mario Kart video I made back in January of 2024, Mario Kart World is as wonderful as it is chaotic and weird, and I can't help but want to write about it. So, without further ado, I'm Liam Triforce, and this is why I care very deeply about Mario Kart World. Much like my previous Mario Kart retrospective, which I highly recommend you watch first so that you have some additional context for this video, this is not going to be a typical review of this game. I learned so much about Mario Kart through making that video than I could have ever anticipated, and it helped me to improve at each game and realize just how beautiful these games can be. That very much extends to how I'm about to evaluate Mario Kart World, and if you're one that just likes to play Mario Kart casually, I really hope that this piques your interest in thinking about the game a bit more seriously. First, let's pick our character and kart combo. Unlike Mario Kart 7 and 8, there is no building mechanic present. Your characters still have weight classes that affect their stats, of course, but builds are far less complicated as a result. Lightweights still give you a huge boost to acceleration and handling, heavyweights are still incredibly fast and hard to bump around, etc. I'm also happy to report that character and kart balance is heavily track dependent, much like Mario Kart 8. Of course, people are going to attempt to find an ideal balance, which is why you'll see so many people using the baby blooper, due to its well-rounded stats, but much like Mario Kart 8, you don't necessarily need to conform to that in order to stand a chance. You can very much still use something that prioritizes stats that are important to you, which is what I've been doing. I am unfortunately not surprised to have to say this, considering this has been a mainstay in Mario Kart since inception, but hidden stats are still in Mario Kart World as far as we know. To be fair, the mini-turbo stat is directly tied to the acceleration stat, which is displayed in-game, and this time, the mini-turbo stat governs how long your mini-turbos last, rather than how fast they build. This does mean that the acceleration stat is incredibly important, which to be fair it already is, due to how many items get thrown at you in this game, but it also means that even characters with lower acceleration and therefore a lower mini-turbo stat can charge their mini-turbos at the same rate. It's a more level playing field. There are also hidden stats for certain characters and karts that allow them to drive faster on certain terrain, like driving through water faster with the Ribbit Revster, for example. Essentially, stat composition is all about covering a wide range without sacrificing too much in any particular category, which gives players a lot of freedom to assemble something that they vibe with. Only now, you don't have to worry about assembling a nightmare of different parts, or using the stupid roller wheels on every single kart for the sake of your mini-turbo. To complement this, you can unlock a ton of outfits for each character by exploring the world for food to eat, either in the free roam mode, while waiting in a pregame lobby, or even by racing through intermissions. There are so many outfits in this game, and so many gorgeous outfits at that. There's an outfit for every vibe and location around the game's world and its various tracks. For each of your favorite characters, you'll be able to find a costume you like. I can almost guarantee it. Except for Donkey Kong and Pauline, but there's probably a reason for that. I'm waiting for the post-Bonanza update. Pairing this with the fact that you have way more freedom to try out different vehicles thanks to a unified playstyle across the board, this is by far the best game in the series when it comes to player expression. And this goes beyond just cosmetics. Mario Kart World allows you to charge a jump when driving straight, meaning you can use this to reach and take shortcuts across multiple tracks. And it also counts as performing a trick, meaning that you can drive on walls and grind on rails too. Tricks you perform can also influence the direction in which you steer yourself while midair, allowing you to align yourself with various terrain across every track. This has been used not just as a means of avoiding the pack thanks to the player count being doubled to 24, but also in order to break most tracks wide open. The team clearly designed your new abilities for you to find so many beautiful ways to interact with their levels, seeing as you can trick off of pretty much anything, and the current world records for each track reveal just how much is possible with these new tools. Great Question Block Ruins, for example, allows you to take a rail to shave off a long turning section, and you can even do this to skip the clouds. I don't really need to give more specifics than that, as many clips from this game should demonstrate just how beautifully it plays, and there is so much freedom to experiment. From Shy Guy Bazaar to Faraway Oasis to DK Pass, this is a true evolution of Mario Kart's gameplay. Mario Kart 8's anti-gravity in hindsight was more of a gimmick than I once thought. It certainly made for some beautiful course theming, and you can bump into other players for a boost. But levels like this are entirely possible without it being a core selling point. In the end, the level layouts don't end up breaking new ground, only the perspectives you see do. Players can totally stretch their suspension of disbelief, and Mario Kart World demonstrates that, as there are a few moments where gravity doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As for the courses themselves, they're brilliant. And not just due to their shortcut potential thanks to the game's new mechanics. DK Spaceport, for example, appears to be a simple zigzagging kind of track, but it invites a sort of controlled chaos where you consider the narrowness of each path, and the absolute blender that is the pack of racers that can amalgamate in the center of the race. To combat this, you actually have plenty of options to avoid the pack, including bouncing off of springs, grinding on rails, and driving on walls to get to a higher part of the level. The whole theme of it being an entire board from the original Donkey Kong arcade game is awesome, to the point where the music evolves with the race, right down to the hammer jingle coming in at the final section where you're dodging barrels. Returning courses such as Sky High Sundae and Wario Shipyard essentially feel like entirely new courses in how you can interact with them. Sky High Sundae went from being one of the most boring tracks layout-wise in the Booster Course Pass, to enabling some of the coolest movement I've ever seen in Mario Kart. It also taught me that if you trick back onto the same wall you were just driving on, provided that the wall curves toward you, you can continue to drive on that same wall. Ridiculous. Wario Shipyard has a lot of water, which is slow and quite sluggish to drift on, but you can also get a few boosts if you figure out how to consistently trick on it. Even so, I'd rather avoid it, and you totally can, much like in Salty Salty Speedway. Even something as simple as Mario Circuit can be driven with an unexpected level of finesse. Due to how open-ended this game's mechanics are, you can find multiple ways to traverse each course, and switch between those methods on a dime depending on the situation. Each track feels consistently alive as you can perform your own freeform jazz to invent new routes through each level, and all the while, their theming is excellent. Boo Cinema is a comparatively simple level, but I absolutely love its theme of leaping through a cinema screen and driving on film reels. Starview Peak taps into what I loved about Rosalina's Ice World, and it even accounts for the 24-player limit, and at the very least, its water section is wide open, allowing some breathing room to grab items and hold onto your coins. Choco Mountain reveals that the once natural mountain made of delectable candy has now been completely industrialized, tying it to the theme of this game's tracks being connected to a living world. And this game's version of Bowser's Castle feels like an all-encompassing test of everything you can pull off. Crazy shortcuts depending on your knowledge of the new mechanics, a much tighter turn through lava if you have the item to pull it off, and a narrow course design that forces you to do what you can to avoid being consumed by the item frenzy brought about by all of those players funneling in. All in all, it is an absolutely breathtaking experience, and something that I constantly find myself coming back to lately. I have no doubt I'll be playing this game for years to come, just as I did with the other games in this series. As high-level players might be able to surmise from a lot of my gameplay, I still have a ways to go before I can truly become a pro. But that's exactly why I'm excited to start grinding time trials to practice with these new abilities. I have never played a kart racer that breaks the rules as much as this one does. Some of the stuff you do in this game can feel reminiscent of the shortcuts in Mario Kart Wii. Only this time, the game allows and encourages this kind of play. Now let's talk about that 24-player limit, because it invites such an overwhelming amount of chaos to the game. Because items are now distributed based on position rather than distance, you will always have this destructive pack driving neck and neck either in front of you or behind you, depending on where you are in the race. It is a cluster that you need to avoid as much as possible. The game is utter chaos as a result, and most of your strategy in races revolves around avoiding the wrath of the pack. This also means that bagging is once again an incredibly powerful tactic, depending on the length and layout of a course, but keep in mind that it is also a strategic option that you can take advantage of depending on when the pack is closing in. At this point, this is a necessary evil in Mario Kart. Nintendo can attempt to do what they can to get rid of it, but the nature of its item system will never truly rid the game of it. And I'm fine with it now, because I view it as a strategic option that varies in effectiveness depending on the course you're playing on. Something like Boo Cinema, for example, doesn't have a lot of shortcut potential, so I don't tend to do it there, but Acorn Heights and Dry Bones Burnout have a ton of places to shave off time. It's not always a rewarding option like you might think. Some have questioned the decision to bump the player count up this high due to the violent and aggressive gameplay it invites, but this decision creates a completely distinct feel, as falling behind the pack to overcome it later, and otherwise using defensive items to stay ahead of the pack, is so unbelievably, indescribably exhilarating. I've played multiple races with fewer players, and while it is still chaotic, it is fundamentally a different experience, and not what makes Mario Kart World special. There have been several tweaks to items to keep the pace of the game moving, and these changes both fuel and temper the chaos in this game. Sure, because stuns are reduced on most items, you are more susceptible to getting comboed, but I've found through experience that staying away from the middle of the road as much as possible makes it much less likely you'll be stuck somewhere for a while, unless someone decides to hit you out of spite. It happens. Every single item returns from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, including the feather, which was previously exclusive to Battle Mode. I find it to be situational in races, and it slows you down quite a bit to have any airtime at all in this game. But I'd rather be able to use it for shortcuts and dodge stuff as a last resort than not have it at all. And yeah, you can do some pretty cool things with it. The golden mushroom is the same as it was before, allowing you to get full mushroom boosts for a brief period of time, but it is more powerful due to how other items have been changed. The shock, for example, only hits players in front of the person that uses it, and its stun is much shorter, instead being useful as a complete item reset for players that just recently ran through an item set. The stun effect is still quite useful when you're trying to make a comeback though. The Mega Mushroom returns from Mario Kart Wii, and it actually serves as a clone of the star this time, meaning you can finally use it to dodge lightning and other projectiles. In fact, I'd argue it's even more powerful, because you can flatten people and stop them dead in their tracks, rather than just stunning and slowing them a bit. Plus, it's fun to hear the sound effects as you rack up hits with it. Sadly, the obnoxious Fire Flower has indeed returned from Mario Kart 8, and this time it's brought a friend, the Ice Flower. I've since gotten better at dodging it thanks to my rear view camera, but I vastly prefer the shotgun blast in Double Dash. The Bullet Bill no longer knocks other players over and costs them coins and time on the track, instead it simply bumps into them, which is extremely necessary given just how many players there are and how other people can fall behind when they become victims of the pack. There would be way too many devastating Bullet Bills for this game to be fun. It can still destroy your items though, so it's best to watch out for it when you have triple shells. There are a few new items as well, including the hammer, which takes some practice to use well, but it is so satisfying to knock people out when you're having trouble overtaking them. There's Kamek, who can transform people into various things and create obstacles on the track for racers to adapt to. and a coin block so that you can get your coin count up in a flash, as well as a coin shell. I hate both of them. Coins are important in this game as they max out your top speed, but your coin limit is now 20, so there's more room for error in accordance with the chaos of this game. That said, if you're on a track that encourages lots of tricks and mini-turbos, then coins don't matter as much as they do on tracks with straightaways. Barring a couple of exceptions I've mentioned, the item selection in this game is pretty great, and even if I dislike some of them or aspects of them, they all make sense to include. From everything I've said, I've clearly made this game seem like a de facto step up from Mario Kart 8, the true pinnacle of the Mario Kart formula. And yeah, I feel it is. When you play it a certain way. And this certain way is not how it was designed to be played. Once again, Mario Kart finds itself splitting its player base. As you'll discover through playing the Grand Prix in public lobbies online, the game is heavily designed around intermission tracks. Each Grand Prix has you start in a 3-lap race, but then you'll have 3 races where you spend most of the race driving to the next track, and you'll race 1 lap there. Despite what everyone has been saying about these intermissions, and despite what I will say about them in just a bit, I personally don't think they're a bad idea at all. They invite some welcome variety and flexibility into each race. Due to just how many variations there are for routes through this system, it's unlikely that you'll be able to memorize them all. It makes for a dynamic racing experience akin to something like Forza Horizon. As far as I can tell, the intent behind them was to reinforce the interconnectedness of this game's world. The same world you can roam around in at your leisure, finding challenges, peach medallions, and other stuff, taking photos along the way, is the very same world that you can race through, and I find it super exciting to watch the layout and atmosphere of the world shift as I approach my next destination. So that's what I like about intermissions. Now let's get into the reasons they are controversial. While I don't necessarily agree with the assessment of the races feeling like you're driving in a straight line all of the time, as the layouts can often have unique ideas and the core gameplay of Mario Kart can make them inherently fun and challenging, and there still is room for player expression and cool strategies, these intermissions taking place on long stretches of highway can often make them feel trivial compared to a traditional race, as if the only part of the race that matters is the final lap, which actually takes place on a normal course. The skill expression, while sometimes apparent, is not nearly as important as it is in an actual racetrack. This is troubling because not only do I personally like the idea of breaking the pace with them every once in a while, as well as how they seamlessly bring the world of the game to life as a racetrack, rather than just an open world sandbox, this interconnectedness is the game's entire identity. It has gotten to be so unanimous of an opinion within the community that past a certain rank, you will only ever see people either picking courses that aren't intermissions or picking random, as it guarantees a regular course every time. Sure, there are some people that love racing on them, but this demonstrates just how little the core concept is resonating with players attempting to take the game more seriously. It's kind of sad to think that the team was so passionate about this concept, and the community has just discarded it entirely. It harkens back to Mario Kart Wii's Funky Kong Flame Runner barrier, or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Yoshi Hive Mind and Roller Wheels, or Mario Kart DS's Snaking, or Double Dash's Barrel Train. Once again, the game is at its best when you play it a certain way. A way that the developers almost certainly did not intend. This ugly thorn in Mario Kart's side is still present, even all these years later. This poses a difficult question. Do they bend the knee and make intermissions less frequent in public lobbies when voting? Do they admit defeat in this regard and cave to the way that people want to play their game? I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo fans found ways to play beyond what the developers intended, to the point where it becomes normalized. Honestly, with the way Nintendo develops awesome games that players make their own in the end, it just goes to show how freaking beautiful Nintendo is at making games in the first place, but how there is always a disconnect when it comes to their community. It is a truly fascinating dichotomy. On that note, let's take a step back for a second. This very notion, people going beyond the intent of the developers, is why I created my original Mario Kart video to begin with. Mario Kart was never intended to be played the way people are playing it now. So I decided to relax a bit and enjoy the game the way it was meant to be played, rather than obsessing over item play and bagging. Before finishing this script, I played some intermissions with my friend King K in public lobbies, who is a staunch defender of the intermissions, and I'm sure he'll have a lot more to say than I do about them in his own video. Anyway, intermissions kept winning in the public vote, despite most people in the lobby being above 8,000 VR. They were not a part of this hive mind of picking random to get normal races. They just wanted to have fun and fuel the chaos at the heart of this game. And that's when I realized Mario Kart was never about order or strictly adhering to a set of rules. It was always about chaos. People have been trying to play this game the same way they've been playing other Mario Kart games with online multiplayer, and that simply isn't how the developers wanted them to play. So I embraced it for a night, and I began to see things differently. I realized that there are a lot of truly great intermissions due to just how many different routes can be taken between each course. I saw ones I had never seen before, including one where we had to drive backwards through DK Pass, and King K even showed me one where, for some reason, you can get into helicopters and giant boats. And you're telling me the, quote, correct way to play this game is to ignore the chaos this invites, just because it isn't as competitively viable? Wasn't Mario Kart supposed to level the playing field like this since inception? Sure, there is a lot of fun to be had when pushing the game to its limits, but this whole debate reminded me that I don't think we should forget what made the series so popular and accepted in the first place. And Mario Kart World totally embraces that. Part of the reason I found the core racing in this game so enjoyable was because the game not only enabled chaos through its 24-player limit, but it also gave us tools to avoid that chaos, and making use of those tools proved to be intoxicating. Intermissions exist as a part of that chaos, as you can't really practice all of them effectively because there are way too many of them. Not to mention, the routes are wide open and designed to fit that 24-player limit much more appropriately than the usually claustrophobic designs of the tracks. It feels incredibly dynamic and puts all players, even particularly skilled ones, on a level playing field. Do intermissions matter as much because of that final lap? Maybe, maybe not. But are they fun? They can be, absolutely. I'm not a fan of playing on them all the time, but I absolutely love throwing some chaos into the mix every once in a while. Plus, the final lap of a Mario Kart race can often upend the T-table anyway. This is true to the nature of this series. Hey, it's me from the future. When I wrote this script, I figured Nintendo would either do absolutely nothing or actually succumb to the complaints against intermissions. I had no idea that they would go in the opposite direction and remove the ability to choose random to avoid intermissions. Random selections now choose from the existing pool of tracks, making the game predominantly about intermissions. You can still get 3-lap courses, but there is no surefire way of playing them unless one happens to appear. This forced me to reconsider my entire thesis for this video. Had the game continued to function the way it has since launch, I would have been fine with just playing intermissions every now and then, but Nintendo has since made it clear that they want people to play this game their way. Why are we not being given a choice in this? Sure, I think intermissions can be really cool, especially as a new method of making players feel equal, but forcing players to play a certain way is fundamentally against the nature of this series. As of now, there needs to be some sort of compromise, otherwise this game's worldwide lobbies are just of no interest to me, which inevitably means that I will put the game down altogether. Where intermissions truly thrive are in the new Knockout Tour mode. Essentially adapting the concept from a custom mode in Mario Kart Wii, you drive through multiple sections across multiple intermissions, and with each section, a handful of people under a certain threshold are knocked out. You continue to do this until you reach the final section, which takes you to a regular racetrack with the remaining 4 racers. Bagging becomes way less effective as the player count decreases, requiring you to push yourself to your absolute limit in terms of driving skill and item strategy. And it is by far the best utilization of this new structure. It is a dangerously addictive mode, and because there are so many connected intermission tracks, you get to see a wealth of different area themes, with music that dynamically changes and evolves as you approach each new section. Because this mode exists, I question their reasoning of forcing players to play intermissions at all. We had the best of both worlds before this. Something needs to change. This was the original thumbnail Hot Cider created for this video. Embracing chaos. I phrased it as such because there was still a way of playing in worldwide lobbies with the traditional 3-lap format. Embracing it meant letting intermissions and other variables creep into your play sessions every now and then. Now it's more like this. I absolutely love this game, and I want others to appreciate what it can bring to the table. By doing this, we are only seeing a small fraction of what makes the game special. This game still has problems outside of this huge debate, by the way. There are no individual lap trackers and time trials, which has been a feature in virtually every Mario Kart game before this. The time trial mode itself is unintuitive to navigate, with you having to download ghosts first, quit out of the rankings menu, and then going to view ghost in order to watch replays. And you can't save replays of any race like you could in Mario Kart 8. There is no tournament mode in this game, which is a huge shame because it allows you to create competitions with specific parameters, and have an unlimited number of people compete in shuffling lobbies. There are less customizable options in private lobbies, including no way to turn off items and practice tracks for fun. There isn't even a password system. Random people can join off of your friends list, which makes competitive lounges hard to organize. Also, you can't complete missions in free roam when playing in multiplayer lobbies, which makes sense, but it is kind of a shame that something so important to the open world is inaccessible with friends. It's still fun though, because you can collect everything else and take photos, and that alone is a far cry from the Mii's standing on top of the earth in Mario Kart 8. Seriously, I love the idea of taking photos with friends in the open world. Some of my favorite moments with this game so far have been through taking photos that exemplify some of the things we've done, such as the penguin takeover we orchestrated, or capturing some long-standing, one-sided animosity as a moment in time. Oh, and this is mostly a personal gripe, but the battle mode sucks again. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe boasted the best battle mode in the series, improving upon Mario Kart 8's battles taking place on regular courses by designing courses specifically for the mode, just as it should have been to begin with. It also featured 5 modes, including the return of Bob-omb Blast and Shine Thief, as well as the excellent Renegade Roundup. Having cops and robbers as a mode in Mario Kart is probably one of the series' best decisions by far. But just the amount of options in this mode make it the best battle mode ever conceived for Mario Kart. And the courses are no slouch either. They are just the right amount of condensed, yet varied in terms of paths to take to avoid confrontation. People sleep on the potential of battles in Mario Kart, but a lot of cool stuff is possible in them. Mario Kart World's battle mode goes back to just balloon battle and coin runners, and the battles have to take place on parts of the world to create cohesion. This means that the arenas are often way too big, even for 24 players, and while balloon battle is fine, coin runners is so easy in this game that I won 3 games in a row while recording footage for this video. All I did was absent-mindedly drive around and collect coins, and somehow I ended up with the most each time. It's a huge step down. Some of these problems are totally fixable through updates, and I'm really hoping this portion of the video ages poorly because of that. Other problems are baked into the game's design, and are not fixable without reworking something that already exists as a complete set idea. This is why I said that it is the pinnacle of the Mario Kart formula when you play it a certain way. It can be, for sure, but that's the thing. It's not a game that tries to be that pinnacle of the formula. It is a game that tries to be distinct through chaos. Whether or not it succeeds in that is up to the individual. But I feel chaos exists in all aspects of this game's design. And in worldwide lobbies, we should be able to see that. And to further exemplify how special chaos is to Mario Kart World, we should take a look at what happens when that chaos is tempered through Rainbow Road. So we've discussed everything that makes Mario Kart World the game that it is. Naturally, you'd expect this game's interpretation of that big, beautiful road in the sky to be the ultimate test of everything you've learned. It's gotta be just as claustrophobic and bunch all 24 racers into a giant cluster. It's gotta have lots of crazy rails and jumps, right? Maybe some wall riding? It's gonna be brutal, yet so rewarding and memorable if I can play it well. To my surprise, Mario Kart World's Rainbow Road didn't have any of that. In fact, it went against all of the preconceived notions I just outlined. It's wide open with plenty of space for all 24 players to drive. There weren't any rails, and its jumps were very much standard. Sure, it was varied, but it wasn't at all an insane test of the game's many intricacies. Instead, it is crafted around the core driving experience of Mario Kart. At first, I was surprised. Weren't previous Rainbow Roads all about creating the ultimate test? Let's run through this for a second. Super Mario Kart and Super Circuit removed guardrails and had you make the sharpest turns of your karting career, with Super Circuit even enabling shortcuts through its bouncy edges. Double Dash pushed you to master the game's unique controls and drifting feel. Mario Kart 7 made use of the continuous lap mechanic and its other new features to create a seamless interstellar race through space, and even on the surface of the moon. And Mario Kart Wii just felt like a perfect encapsulation of everything that game introduced, with corners that reward mastery of inside drifting, tricks, ramps, that sort of thing. Even when a Rainbow Road isn't about being the ultimate test, they can still introduce their own challenges. Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road is infamously an endurance run that can take forever to complete, and it makes for one hell of a karting experience. Mario Kart DS is famous for its snaking technique along straightaways to build consistent mini-turbos, but Rainbow Road is so narrow in that game that you are forced to adapt in the moment. So, what is Mario Kart World's Rainbow Road about? Well, to be honest, the only Rainbow Road that didn't exactly deliver was Mario Kart 8's. It wasn't very challenging, and the anti-gravity sections in it didn't change a whole lot about the core driving experience. It ended up being outshined by the retro Rainbow Roads that they included, to the point of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe using 64's Rainbow Road in its box art. I think the Mario Kart team took criticism of that track into account when crafting this one, because Mario Kart World's Rainbow Road isn't about what this game brings to the table as a new entry. It's about removing those elements, subverting expectations just as the game itself does. This Rainbow Road is not designed for you to test yourself, but for you to enjoy yourself. The entire game's design is chaotic, as I have repeatedly illustrated, and Rainbow Road gives you a chance to breathe through its track design, and soak in the atmosphere through its varied sections. The more I played it, the more I came to absolutely adore it for its deviation from the game's core concept. The fact that it is contrary to what this entire game is about makes it an absolutely genius track. On top of that, it has bits and pieces of previous Rainbow Roads baked into its design. Section 1 has you racing with the whole planet in view below you like in Double Dash. It has jumps in a spacious road for turns like in Mario Kart Wii too. But then you break through to Section 2, and it is the most dazzling sight to behold in the entire game. The water twinkles with stardust, and you can see Lumas cheering you on. The music takes a break from its hectic nature to allow you to enjoy this. There's water here like in the main game, but it's not nearly as difficult to master as it is in Dandelion Depths, Wario Shipyard, or Salty Salty Speedway. You just get to enjoy yourself here. You can even spot the train from 64's Rainbow Road carrying people, creatures, and things from across the game world. Then after this section, you head into a space station, like in Mario Kart 7 or 8, and there's a high-speed section that has you making sharp turns and avoiding thwomps like in Super Mario Kart, demonstrating that despite everything, this track can still challenge you when it wants to. The music uses a synthesizer to carry its melody into the space station as well. And then finally in Section 4, you race high above in space and come zooming back to Earth, with an anti-gravity section a la Mario Kart 8, with the interstellar vibe of this whole track feeling so evocative of Mario Kart DS and Wii. And to top it all off, the track is an endurance run in its length, perhaps making it the longest Rainbow Road in the series, an honor that Mario Kart 64 once held. If I'm not mistaken, that's all of them. Well, except Super Circuit, but it and Super Mario Kart could be one and the same at times. This Rainbow Road is a love letter to the Mario Kart series, and I think it just might be my favorite Rainbow Road in the entire series, not only because of how well it provides a distinct breath of fresh air from the rest of the game, but for its sheer variety, its various homages to what made each Rainbow Road special in the past, and its demonstration of how the series has evolved over time. To be honest, this Rainbow Road almost brings me to tears to think about, and I think that's how I know it's going to stand the test of time. As I've said, this Rainbow Road is deliberately distinct from the rest of the game, much like Mario Kart World in the face of the series. And I came to realize that very notion stands as a representation of what makes Mario Kart World such a great game. You might have noticed that I haven't talked a whole lot about free roam yet, and that is for good reason. The open world is by far the most controversial part of the game, and some have questioned why it exists at all. But it's not like we're going from Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild and that the entire game revolves around exploring it. Sure, it is embedded in multiple other aspects of this game's design, but this mode, on its own, is simply an additional feature that ties the game world together. One that you can interact with if you want, but doesn't demand you do so. In pre-game lobbies, you can explore it for fun. To unwind after a stretch of intense racing, it allows you to take a breath and relax. You can learn new strategies for approaching the world and its missions and challenge yourself in unique ways, but that's only if you feel like doing so. You can collect stamps to honor all of your achievements across the game, and it feels as though you are absorbing yourself in this game's world as you do so. Collecting trinkets that represent your time in each area, the sights you've seen, the things you've done through your own intuition and curiosity. Hell, in multiplayer, you can come up with your own little minigames like hide and seek or tag. Free roam is so special precisely because it doesn't demand progression or urgency in anything it has you do. If it did, it would not be the same. It is just as important to this game's design as its Rainbow Road. Not to mention, when I am exploring the world, I often find myself amazed by just how incredible this game's soundtrack is. There are an almost uncountable amount of songs from across the Mario franchise in this game, all featuring a variety of genres and instrumentation beyond just the jazz fusion direction of Mario Kart 8. It's all about the big band feel. There are saxophone harmonies, insane freeform jazz drum solos, ska remixes, and so much more that I couldn't possibly count here without going on for ages and getting a copyright claim from Nintendo. It can be genuinely beautiful, making me emotional at times and reminding me of the moments in my life where I played these games for the first time. The open world, as well as the ever so controversial intermissions, are about the joy of traveling from one place to the next. They are about enjoying the ride, and seeing these things under that lens made me like and appreciate them way more. The even playing field that intermissions invite harken back to the very thing that Mario Kart was designed around. Fun for everyone, no matter the skill level. With that said, the online multiplayer is a huge part of each Mario Kart game's longevity. The truth is, I absolutely love this game, and the only way for me to appreciate all aspects of it is if its players are given options, and we don't currently have those options. As I have so plainly laid out, I am not criticizing this new game for being simply different. You can look at my Breath of the Wild video, as well as most of my Zelda videos to be honest, to see how willing I am to accept new directions. I am criticizing Mario Kart World because I genuinely want it to be the best game it can be. There is so much good on display here through the game's wonderful mechanics enabling player freedom, the absolutely mind-boggling track design, and potential for new strategies and movement. It is so good that a Donkey video focusing on that very thing made me emotional. I've even come to appreciate the intermissions. All I ask is that the game does not lean so heavily on one thing, instead embracing its own chaos through all of its elements. I want chaotic 3-lap races and intermissions on their own to be separate options in worldwide lobbies, just as much as I want to break from it all through Rainbow Road and the open world. Contrary to the vitriol some might feel toward this game's new direction, I want it all, not just one thing. When playing in private lobbies with friends, you can still make that happen, but good luck finding 23 other people to play with at all times. Let us love this game, Nintendo. It really shouldn't be a debate. There's a place for everything you've created in your game, and the way the game's versus lobbies are now, it prioritizes just one of those things. It's not often I get to say this, but I really hope this video ages poorly. I care very deeply about Mario Kart World, and as we've seen, tons of other players do too. But apparently, we just don't care about it in the way Nintendo wants us to. I love this game for being different, but I also want it to be the best it can be. Thanks for watching my video about Mario Kart World. I know it's quite soon to evaluate this game fully, but I felt compelled to talk about it, especially with how much discussion it's already generated, and for good reason. Projects like this, as well as the generous sponsors that feature in all of my videos, all contribute to me being able to do exactly what I want to do. And I want to extend a big thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this one. They are absolute legends. Not just for that, but mostly because they are my personal favorite VPN, and they've been pretty lenient with creative ads, especially from one channel I love, Tomska and Friends. So this is a glowing recommendation from me, and I'm happy to feature them. Surfshark VPN has everything you'd want out of a VPN. You can browse the internet with your choice of over 3,200 servers from 100 countries, accessing content otherwise unavailable in your region, like shows and movies on Netflix and other streaming services too. It protects your data and personal information as you browse, so that your personal information is secure on public Wi-Fi. Both of these are excellent use cases on their own, and I use it for those things constantly, but there's more to it than that. They offer a full suite of options for connections, such as the industry-leading WireGuard protocol, an IP rotator, and my personal favorite feature when it comes to online privacy, Surfshark's no logs policy. Surfshark VPN does not keep logs of what you do while using it, meaning that anything you do stays with you. Guaranteed. This is what personally swayed me on Surfshark to begin with. Privacy is most important to me, and they honor that with this policy. They also offer other products such as Surfshark Antivirus to protect your devices from harm, Surfshark Alert for if your passwords and data are ever found in a breach, Surfshark Search for searching the web without tracking or ads, and even Alternative ID for masking your real name and contact information on sites you don't trust. They just go the extra mile in everything that they offer, and I love Surfshark for that. I've used Surfshark VPN for a long time now, and I have no plans to switch. There is no harm in trying it out either, as they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/Triforce or use code TRIFORCE at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. That's right, 4 extra months at no additional cost. Did I mention that they are absolute legends? With that, I've been Liam Triforce, and I'd like to thank you for watching.